Good morning, ladies. Today our learning target is I can compare and contrast characters within a story. So today I want you to focus on the words and actions of our main character Annabelle and our supporting character Sally for today. We're going to do our first read and then we'll really dive in and preview our questions and then go on to our close read. Annabelle was the school's best dancer, something she reminded Taylor, Laura, and even the 5-year-old Christina of every day. Miss Coolidge says I'm very gifted, she said, elongating the word gifted until it seemed to have 3 syllables instead of 2. She says I'll probably be a principal dancer at one of the world's most elite theaters. Miss Coolidge had said those things, but she had said them to a number of students in need of inspiration as encouragement. Get inspired was something Miss Coolidge thought was very important. Annabelle, she believed, was inspired, but inspired to win, to outdo and beat everybody else. Miss Coolidge would prefer it if Annabelle simply liked to dance. Students, students, Miss Coolidge called to a small gaggle of girls surrounding Annabelle. I'd like to introduce you to our newest student, Sally. Sally is the most talented and gifted student. I hope you'll all take the time to greet her warmly. Annabelle looked at Sally with lowered brows. Sally didn't have a dancer's body. She was short, with legs that looked bowed, like they belonged to a frog instead of an 11-year-old girl. Annabelle smirked. This girl would be no competition for Annabelle in her graceful, gifted performances. In the following weeks, however, it became clear that Annabelle had grossly underestimated Sally's dancing abilities. In fact, Sally was not just a gifted dancer, but Sally was an incredibly gifted dancer. She leapt and twirled and bowed and moved in ways Annabelle hadn't imagined possible for such a short girl. And to top it off, Sally was a nice girl. She didn't brag, she didn't rub her talent into classmates' faces, and she never said no to helping one of the younger girls learn a new dance move. She was funny, she was smart, and everyone liked her. Annabelle was furious. Auditions for the lead of the school ballet were only 3 weeks away, and she was nearly positive that Sally would snatch the part right from underneath her. And so Annabelle devised a plan. It was a well-known fact that Sally liked cake. In fact, Annabelle wondered how someone so little could eat so much. And yet, Sally managed to eat 1/3 of a triple chocolate fudge cake every single day. Cake, Annabelle told herself, is Sally's weakness. On the morning of the audition, Annabelle filled a small paper bag with earthworms. There were 4 of them, big, juicy brown worms that she found sunning themselves on the sidewalk after the previous evening's rain. She felt them wiggle and twist in her hands as she placed them in the bag. She arrived at school just after Sally had placed the paper bag in her locker. Miss Coolidge, she said during their first class, I forgot something in my locker. Can I go get it? Miss Coolidge nodded yes and continued to talk about the importance of stretching. Annabelle hurried to her locker. She reached to the top shelf, but the small bag was missing. She began to look frantically through her locker. She shook out her jacket, pulled out her bag, emptied her pencil case. The worms were gone. Annabelle walked back to her class stiffly. She wasn't sure what to make of this development. The worms couldn't have walked away, she frowned. Had someone seen her collecting the worms? By the time Annabelle returned to class, it was time for auditions. Annabelle, oopsie, too far. So sorry. Annabelle would perform first. She had prepared a beautiful piece in which she slid across the stage on her toes, emulating a flower tulip. Annabelle was midway through her performance when she felt something warm and sticky land on her right shoulder. A few minutes later, she felt another drop on her head, and then again on her left shoulder. She looked down. The earthworms she had collected in the morning were draped across her shoulders. She could feel the 3rd earthworm dangling from her ear like some misshapen earring. Annabelle looked up, and from the rather she saw Sally holding a small brown paper bag. Sally winked at her. Nice try, she mouthed. Sally got the lead that year. All right, ladies, so now let's preview our questions. You have multiple choice and short response for today, so we're just going to kind of go through these quickly so that you can focus your close read. Number 1, Miss Coolidge says that Annabelle is very what? Number 2, Annabelle devises a plan that somehow involves a bag of earthworms and Sally. What motivates Annabelle's actions? So again, we're motivating actions. What is the reason that Annabelle does those things? Number 3, Annabelle wants to be the best at ballet. What evidence from the story best supports this conclusion? Number 4, how can Annabelle best be described? Character traits. Number 5, what is the main idea of the passage? Number 6, read the following sentences. Annabelle smirked. The girl would be no competition for her. Oops, I'm sorry, I'm having trouble here with my mouth. The girl would be no competition for Annabelle in her graceful, gifted performances. In the following weeks, however, it became clear that Annabelle had grossly underestimated Sally's dancing abilities. In fact, Sally was not just a gifted dancer, but Sally was an incredibly gifted dancer. She leapt and twirled and bowed and moved in ways that Annabelle hadn't imagined possible for such a short girl. As used in the sentence, what does the word underestimate most nearly mean? What does it mean? They're just trying to be fancy. Choose the answer that best completes the sentence. Blank, Annabelle is the best dancer in class. Then a dancer joins the class. So number 8, 9, and 10. Who gets the lead in the school ballet? Number 9. During Annabelle's audition, Sally drops the earthworms that Annabelle had collected on her and mouths. Nice try. Based on this information, what can you conclude about Sally? And then number 10, Annabelle and Sally are more similar than they seem at the beginning of the story. Explain whether this statement is accurate or not. So support your answer using evidence from the stories. This is kind of like one of our defend your stance questions, right? So they're giving you a statement. They're more similar than they seem at the beginning, and you have to say if it's true or false, if it's accurate or not, and then you need to support your answer with information from the story. This is that defend your stance part. Alrighty, ladies. Okay, so now it's time to close read. Now that we've done our first read, it's time to go back and chunk your text. Circle and attempt to define unknown words, underline key information, and remember to focus on information that would help you to support your answers because you've already previewed your questions. Snap for that strategy. You're summarizing in the margin, and you're identifying any elements that may be helpful. So again, keep in mind our learning target, we're comparing and contrasting characters within the same story. So you're focusing on dialogue between these characters, their actions, thinking about their motivation, maybe even how other characters view them. Okay, so it is now time to pause the video. You're going to go back and you are going to close read and then answer your multiple choice and short response questions, and then you'll check yourselves against mine. All right, ladies, so now it's time to compare and contrast your notes and your answers against mine. Um, Again, you should already have these completed. You are not copying this, I think. You are just making sure that you have certain notes in certain places. You're evaluating your responses and making sure that your details are relevant and supportive. So up here, I kind of marked up our learning target, compare and contrast. Those are similarities and differences. And I just put a star over here, so I'm focusing on words, actions, and other characters' reactions and treatment of our characters. And we know from our first read that our two characters that we're focusing on today are Sally and Annabelle. Okay, so the first page I just did a chunk together by itself. Annabelle was the school's best dancer. That's how it starts. I think that that's important to identify because she isn't necessarily the best dancer at the end, right? So I think that's important to identify here at the beginning. Miss Coolidge isn't very gifted. Gifted means talented with unique ability, and in this area, it's dance. You can be gifted in anything, but we're talking about ballet today. Principal dancer is the elite top dancer. She had said these things to a number of students. I think that's important to identify that Miss Coolidge doesn't just give this feedback to Sally. She gives it to everybody. She wants to motivate her students. So it says Annabelle thinks she's the best dancer. Miss Coolidge compliments everyone. What is interesting though is, as you can see kind of at the bottom here, Miss Coolidge introduces Sally as the most talented and gifted. So let's take a peek here at this next chunk. Annabelle is super judgy of Sally right up here. I'm not sure if you can see. Okay, but she's talking about how she doesn't look like a dancer. Okay, how she's not going to be any competition, how Annabelle is so graceful that she just couldn't compare. So It's very important, though, that these are both included in the same chunk because right in the second paragraph of this chunk, it says, in the following weeks, however, it became clear that Annabel had grossly underestimated Sally's dancing abilities. Sally was not just a gifted dancer, but Sally was an incredibly gifted dancer. So my summary notes over here in the margin are Sally joins dance class, Annabel judges her, but Sally turns out to be a great dancer and a really nice person. She's helpful to others, she's funny, she's smart, she's well liked. All right, so now let's jump down and take a look at the next chunk here on this page. This made Annabel extremely mad, right? Auditions are coming up. Annabelle's like, I need that lead, so I need to figure out a plan. I need to devise some sort of plan here. So she's tried to figure out what she knows about Sally. She knows Sally loves cake. So she's like, you know what? I'm going to fill a bag with earthworms and use them later on during the day. Okay? And she places them. She arrives at school just after Sally and places them in her locker. And then she asks her Miss Coolidge, oh, you know what? I forgot something in my locker. Can I go get it? So Annabelle discovers Sally's weakness and uses it to trick her with earthworms. Of course, Miss Coolidge says yes. And Annabelle goes to her locker, and unfortunately, well, fortunately for somebody else, the earthworms are missing. Okay, and auditions are that day. So what I kind of asked myself too is she frowned and she's asking, had someone seen her collecting the worms? And I kind of added on to that, did Sally see her? Sally just arrived, right? Right after her. Hmm, interesting. So I said Annabelle excuses herself to go to her locker to get her bag of worms, but they are gone. Okay, so let's take a peek up here before we look at my Venn diagram that I drew so beautifully. Um, Last chunk here, I really only have a couple different things underlined, is that Annabelle looked up and from the rafter she saw Sally holding the small brown paper bag. And then she kind of winks at her, gives a nice try, and then Sally gets the lead. So we see a different side of Sally there at the end. So Annabelle's plan backfired and Sally ended up putting the worms on her instead. So what I did here, and this might give you a little nostalgia for class, Miss Egging drawing her big circles for her Venn diagram that are not circles at all. I'm not sure what's going on even over here. When we're comparing and contrasting, this is the graphic organizer that we use, right? So we have Annabelle and Sally. So Annabelle, arrogant, self-absorbed, speaks her mind. She's a jealous girl. Sally, she helped younger dancers. She's nice. She didn't brag. She was smart and funny, and she's well liked by others, right? And we're really focusing here kind of at the beginning for both of these characters. But similarities that they have, right? They're both dancers. They're both kind of clever. They're both auditioning for the same lead role. They both received praise from Miss Coolidge. And then at the bottom, they both had a plan with the earthworms, and they were both competitive in an unkind way. So Sally, we kind of see as this really kind of great dancer, great person throughout the whole story. And then the last few sentences were like, oh, wow. She had the choice to stop Annabelle and not do anything, right? But she chose to kind of then use those earthworms, that plan, kind of against her, and it backfired. But it also says kind of a lot about Sally's character. Maybe she isn't as um, nice as we thought, right? And if she continues that behavior, she may not be as well liked by others. So now what I want to do is I want to jump down to our short response questions, questions 8, 9, and 10. Let's talk about 8 first. 8 was pretty self-explanatory. You just had to make sure you backed it up with the details. Who gets the lead? Sally gets the lead in the school ballet. Sally is new to dance class and is a great dancer. She even helps out the younger girls. Even though Annabelle tries to sabotage her audition with earthworms, Sally still wins. That one was pretty self-explanatory, straight comprehension. Let's talk about 9. So 9 says, during Annabelle's audition, Sally drops the earthworms that Annabelle had collected on her and mouths, nice try. Based on this information, what can you conclude about Sally? What claim can you make? What um, position can you arrive at? So I said, based on her actions, you can conclude that Sally is clever and aware of Annabelle's plan. Sally was clever in taking them out of Annabelle's locker while she was in class. Annabelle's plan backfired, and she was the one then covered in worms. Number 10, I think, is the best question here. Very uh, supportive of our learning target. So number 10 says, Annabelle and Sally, I keep doing that, Allie, I'm like putting them together. Annabelle and Sally are more similar than they seem in the beginning of the story. Explain whether the statement is accurate or not. Support your answer using information from the story. So I said, at the beginning, we see the differences in character, such as Annabelle bragging about her ability, while Sally never brags and even helps others. At the end, though, we learn that Sally has a bit of a competitive, unkind streak in her, too. She could have just stopped Annabelle's plan, but instead, Sally chose to turn the plan on Annabelle, covering her with worms. Okay, so again, her actions make her extremely similar. So during our Zoom this week, ladies, I'm really going to be asking about question number 10. So please make sure that you have an extremely thorough answer for that. Okay, all right, I can't wait to hear your responses, and I hope you enjoyed the story today. Thank you, ladies.